ain't here to negotiate. Unity is all we need. Future's ours at God's speed. Can't fall for no division. Divide and conquer is their mission. So they hid our history, but now we know our legacy. Yeah. Africa, the foundation. Black wealth for generations. Home is where the heart is. They can't do nothing about this. It's the awakening. They ain't ready for the reckoning. No Wakanda, this is Africa. Black wealth, this the black maker. Elders kept the dream alive. Gave us vision, so we gon' thrive. Free your mind, don't fall behind. The real truth ain't hard to find. Corporations in cooperation. The new Africa in operation. Building the homeland, calling our people to the motherland. Allow it, this is destiny. We here now, it's reality, yeah. It's the African dream. Melanin is the light.
Welcome to the Africa Must Unite podcast. A podcast dedicated to inspiring African people worldwide to rise up, organize, and struggle for Pan-Africanism, a unified, liberated socialist Africa, the only permanent solution to the exploitation and oppression of African people, no matter where they happen to be born or to live in the world. Now please, welcome the hosts of Africa Must Unite.
Building the black maker, calculated like algebra. 2050 is the future, bro. What? Yeah, eyes open, we see the vision. Building Africa, the only mission. Like Omar, if I thunder, we be Pan-African all day. The time is now, this is our moment. We ain't asleep, we ain't dumb. All day, every day, we building our shit.
Pan-African greetings, everyone. I'm Tokes Adewale.
And I'm Brother Neil.
And we're from the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party. And what I would like to do to begin things is to read the theme of our calendar of 2026, Socialism, an imperative for a liberated, unified Africa and for the liberation of all Africans. So here we go. Socialism is a system of production in which working class people own and control the economy and the main institutions of the society. This is the exact opposite of what we see in the current global system of capitalism, where a small group of super wealthy individuals, the capitalists, get rich while our people in Africa work incredibly hard at often dangerous jobs for $2 a day. In rich countries like the United States, our people often must work 2 and 3 jobs just to take care of their basic needs. In the capitalist world, the economy, the government, the schools, the media, including social media, are all controlled by this tiny group of capitalists. Today, there are 8 rich people who control as much wealth as 40% of the world's population. In Africa, we see the same thing. There are 4 men, 2 of whom are white South Africans, control half of the wealth of the continent. Socialism will reverse this in a number of ways. First, socialism provides a model for developing the economy. Countries like the Soviet Union and China were extremely poor and underdeveloped before they became socialist. Within a generation, they each became world powers by following the socialist path. Perhaps most impressive is Cuba, a small country only 90 miles from the U.S. Despite a crippling embargo imposed by the U.S., Cuba has developed a world-class system of healthcare and medical industry that each year develops new medicines and treatments and whose doctors bring health care to poor communities throughout the world. Cuba even offers free medical education for Africans from the U.S. In short, genuine socialism will allow Africa rapid economic development, provide equitable access to jobs, education, housing, healthcare, and other products of society. As Nkrumah once put it, socialism will allow the fruit growers to be the fruit eaters. The people themselves will own the economy. Maybe more importantly, socialism will provide us with an institutional base that will encourage us to be people who embrace those principles such as humanism, collectivism, and egalitarianism, with which we constantly seek a better world for everyone as we move away from the dog-eat-dog thinking that the corrupt and dying capitalist economic system instills in us every day. Socialism is essential for true Pan-Africanism, a unified socialist Africa. It is the objective that ensures our liberation. Okay, I think this month is 2026 of July, and we focus on employment. But as always, we like to start with some important dates in the history of African people and other progressive peoples based on our calendar. Brother Neil.
Yeah, Brother Tokes, this month of July is a month of beginnings, and so I'm going to talk about some of the beginning dates of this month. We have beginnings of national independence, organizations began, people were born, revolutionaries were born, and so forth. Excuse me, but before I get started on the actual dates, I want to let our viewers know that we are going to have, at this time of the year, because the year's more than halfway through, we put out digital copies of the calendar for free. And so you can request one of those digital copies. And at the end of the program, we'll be actually giving out our email address. And so be sure to copy it down and request a digital copy of the calendar, because you can read right along with us the dates and what have you from this of the particular months. Now, first I want to talk about national independence. There were 3 African countries that got its independence in July, and one country that was predominantly African in the Pacific that got its independence in July. I'll just mention one of those countries. And on the 5th of July in 1975, the PAIGC, that is the African Party for the Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, led Cape Verde to independence. Also, in the month of July, we see a number of organizations that were born, and I'm just going to mention one date here. On the 4th, Tuskegee Institute was born in 1881, and it, unlike what many people don't know, it was contributed to this Pan-African development. And the Nation of Islam also was born in the 4th of July in 1930. There were a number of revolutionaries who were born in July. On the 2nd of July, both Patrice Lumumba and Medgar Evers were born, and both of them were born in 1925. On the 6th of July, Assata Shakur was born. Revolutionary sister Assata Shakur was born in 1947, and also the revolutionary sister Ida B. Wells, born in 1862. On the 18th of July, Nelson Mandela was born in 1916. July was also a month of struggle. There were African rebellions on the 12th of July in 1967 in Newark, and a few days, and the ashes weren't even cold when you had the Black Power Conference, also in New Jersey, in the same 1967. And the 23rd of July, also in 1967, Detroit rebellion took place, spanning 5 days, in which they actually had to battle the U.S. Army. On the 26th of July 1953, Cuban forces under Fidel Castro launched the struggle that was to bring forth the Cuban Revolution. Lastly, we have some transitions that took place, and these should not be considered endings but beginnings, in the sense that we learn from the lives and practices of these stellar revolutionaries. On the 3rd of July, on 2017, our own Ahmed Fletcher Mbalia made his transition. He was not only a member, but a founder and a key person whose life we can learn a lot from, of the PRSP. Tula Shakur, new African freedom fighter and member of the BLA, Black Liberation Army, passed on 2023. So those are the dates that we did for this month. Again, a month of a number of beginnings of revolutionary organizations, revolutionary struggles, and revolutionary individuals.
Okay, those are very interesting dates. I didn't realize that Medgar Evers and Patrice Lumumba were born the same day and same year. That's amazing. What a coincidence.
And a bunch of revolutionaries born in that 1925 period.
Mm-hmm. So
now,
go ahead.
Yeah. Now, before we begin to discuss employment, Brother Tokes, can you discuss the nature of labor and its value to production, to the production process?
Great. That's a very important question, Brother Neil. And what's important to note is that labor is a source of all value, all wealth. It's so important. It's fundamental to all of social life, both mental and physical labor. And in fact, it's what makes us human. And again, it's not just physical labor, but mental labor. Because with mental labor, we bring in ingenuity, inventiveness, creativity, innovation. So it's so critical. In fact, I remember Kwame Ture used to always say this: what separates us from the animals, because we have this mental capacity. So he used to use the example of a dog will could be another 1,000 years, but we'll still have to make the dog house for him. So that's what separates us from everybody. And so it's labor, and it's surplus. It's the labor that human beings produce that separates capitalism from socialism to some degree. I don't want to get ahead, but there's value that human beings bring to production, be it service or commodities, is critical because they add so much value to the product or to the service. And what happens in Africa, we get cheated. We lose so much money because all this added labor, which provides value, is not in what we're sending out. The services and the products that we're serving out don't include this labor. It's added value. And so labor is everything. It's what separates cotton from cloth. You know, if we if we were exporting cloth instead of cotton, it's more labor put in to make the cloth than the cotton. Cotton, you pick it and it's just there, it's soft and feels nice. But cloth, that's production, that's labor. And that takes more time, more ingenuity, more creativity. Same with, sending out chocolate instead of cocoa. In Ghana, we're sending out mostly cocoa. We're producing chocolate now, but that's more recent. Or the same with aluminum. We're just sending out aluminum rather than, sending out bauxite. Sending out bauxite instead of aluminum. So it's all about labor. It's all about production. And the more labor, the higher the value in the product and the service. So that's what I can say for now. So, Brother Neil, I think it's also imperative that we compare how the capitalist system and the social system differ in how they view employment, which is what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think first you go back to what you were saying in terms of how capitalism versus socialism actually view the worker. The worker is the one that produces wealth, and that is even from picking the cotton to turning the cotton into cloth to shipping the cloth somewhere around the world. At each stage in that thing, it's actually the worker that's the one that contributes the most value and all the value. And what happens is that the capitalist steals all of that value. And what that means then is that, first of all, you have a different approach in the capitalist world, the worker is looked at as what we would say in economics terms as a means to an end, and just as a way to produce profit. Whereas in the socialist world, the worker is looked at as an end in him or herself. That is the task of socialism is to not just have the worker produce wealth, but also the worker has to benefit from that wealth in that sense that the worker, one, collectively owns the wealth and the production process, and two, that because you cut out the profit, you cut out the capitalist, the worker can benefit directly from the wealth that's produced, and three, because the worker is considered to be in the socialist system as part of the overall process, then the worker also participates in the planning and organization of the entire process of production and distribution and so forth and so on. And lastly, the last point I want to make in terms of the differences between the two, one of the things that you see is that you hardly ever see any unemployment in places like, in social societies is very low, and in the capitalist world, unemployment is necessary in order to keep profits high. And the way it happens in the African world, in the global Africa, outside of Africa, in the domestic colonies around the world, Africans have much higher unemployment than do, let's say, Europeans in these areas. So under socialism, we, first of all, in terms of employment, we're going to see a reversal of this, not only in terms of the level of employment, which would be full employment, but also the conditions of employment where people can learn on the job, participate in structuring the production, and also benefit directly from the production. Now, folks, on this issue of employment, can you discuss some of the consequences for Africa, which results from the lack of employment, especially for Africa's youth?
Yeah, but Neil, it's major. And one of the things we could talk about is just mass poverty without unemployment. We mentioned earlier about not adding value to what we produce. And so when you're not adding value, there's obviously going to be unemployment. And when there's unemployment, we don't have in Africa, these social welfare and food stamps. We don't have all that. So you reduce to begging and looking for food, clothing, shelter. So it's mass poverty. And it's also because we mentioned earlier that labor is such an integral part of being a human being. It retards your creativity, your inventiveness, your innovation. It denies your very humanity. That's what human beings are. We produce. That's what makes us human. So it's very sad. As far as youth are concerned, it's critical. Everybody can see it. You got a huge brain drain because we don't have the employment opportunities, and so they're trying to be human, so they're looking for work, and so they just leave Africa. They just leave Africa, and imagine all that creativity, ingenuity, creativity. It's leaving Africa. So qualitatively, it's devastating. And they run into Europe, North America, anywhere. And of course, in many cases, dying in the trying to get across the Mediterranean and all these countries and ships trying to get to Europe. And I think that one of the hardest areas hit is medicine. We can't keep any doctors, nurses, lab technicians. It's insane. So this lack of employment is very, very severe, very serious. So can we discuss then, Brother Neil, why much of Africa suffers from such low employment rate? Why the employment rate is so low?
Well, yeah, I think Tokes, the key thing, one of the key things to remember is that capitalism didn't just drop out of the sky. It was born out of certain other economic systems and so forth. And so one of the big contributing factors to the development of capitalism is slavery. And one of the things that slavery did was not only take productive forces in terms of workers out of Africa, many of them, not all certainly, but many, and scatter our people all around the world. And out of that system came a system where we were not and this colonialism that followed that was one in which we began to produce not for ourselves but for the rest of the world. So we were growing cotton, cocoa, things like that, which were going to be consumed primarily in the Western world. And so the industrial forces, the factories and so forth that transform those raw materials into finished products tended to be outside of the continent. And because of this outside of the continent, because we were not getting not even a small percentage of the value back, then that over time made us poorer and poorer and poorer. The other thing is that, generally speaking, capitalism in an industrial country tends to give to the worker enough for the worker so that worker can reproduce themselves, just have families and food and feed themselves. In Africa, that again is not the case. And even so, even where people are working, they have to supplement that work with a little farming here and there, a little hustling here and there, selling, when I'm saying hustling, I mean selling little products here and there on the side of the street, on the side of the road, whatnot. And so we have to supplement the small wages that we do get with our feeding ourselves from gardens and little small farms and that sort of thing. And so we are actually subsidizing the capitalists by paying ourselves, and in that particular sense, and they don't have to pay us. So we are getting super, not only super exploited, but when the wealth is stripped out of our lands, we are being they're being stripped out for hardly any money. Valuable things like the coltan that we all use in our phones, and those things, we get hardly any value back. So those are some of the reasons why we have such high levels of unemployment on the continent. And off of the continent, the rest of global Africa, again, that legacy of slavery means that we are forced into the worst jobs and the worst conditions. And again, capitalism needs us to have high unemployment because that means that that helps to bring the wages down for everyone. And it also means that it creates stability in the system, because in a system like the United States, where whites are the majority, if you have a super high number of Africans unemployed, then those same Europeans now, they can be employed at a higher level than they would normally be under strict capitalism, without a domestic colony. And because of that, they're less likely to rebel and seek change or revolution. So capitalism as a system loves high unemployment for Africans, whether we're in Africa, whether we're in Europe or United States or in the Caribbean or South America. And now, Tokes, what do you think a unified socialist Africa would mean regarding the employment of our people?
Right. Another excellent question, and you've been speaking to it all along. Socialism is just the exact opposite, and it's not a system based on the pursuit of profits, as you mentioned. And so it's the main focus of socialism, its motivating force is to serve human needs. And needs are constant. Unlike profit, it's not constant. It's not constant. When there's no profit to be made, they don't invest, they don't employ, and people are unemployed. But if your economic system is based on the production for needs, social needs, for food, clothing, shelter, economic needs, you always have an incentive to produce. That's why, as you mentioned earlier, the socialist countries have a very low unemployment rate. 3%, 2%, 1%, that kind of thing. Sometimes even less, because you're not producing for profit. You're producing for need. And so there's always work. And so we look forward to socialist societies, and we all must struggle to bring this about, so we can make sure to become fully human. So this is, in a nutshell, I think what we want to share with everyone today. So we hope you will join us next month, August 2026, when we'll focus on workers.
Meanwhile, visit our website, Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party.org. Email us at panafricanrsp@gmail.com, and remember that Pan-African rsp@gmail.com is where you can email us and request a free digital copy of the calendar, so you can read right along with us as we do these podcasts. Like us on SoundCloud.com. Visit us on YouTube.
Fantastic. So please, listeners, organization is the key. Join us, the Pan-African Revolutionary Socialist Party, or some other revolutionary Pan-African socialist organization. A union of African socialist states is on the horizon. Thank you.
On my way to Washington, feeling mighty sad, thinking about an income that I never had. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. And before the campaign fails, we all go down in jail. Everybody's got a right to live. Black man picked the cotton long time ago. He's been the victim since brought him to the show. Black man dug the ditches, hewed down the pines, gave his trouble to Jesus, kept on towing the line. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. And before this movement fails, we all go down in jail. Everybody's got a right to live. Black man dug the pipelines both night and day. Black man did the work while the white man got the faith. Now look at here, son. This is a brand new day. No more full-time work. No more part-time pay. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. And before this movement fails, we all go down in jail. Everybody's got a right to live. Yeah. I want my share of silver. I want my share of gold. Want my share of justice. Kill my dying soul. Black men dug the ditches long time ago. He has been the victim since brought him to this show. Everybody's got a right to live. Everybody's got a right to live. And before this movement fails, we all go down in jail. Everybody's got a right to live.